Welcome to the Hacking Your Health podcast with Ben Canning and Dave Kennedy. Two guys heading out to hack body, mind, business, and beyond. We are here to provide a single source, bullshit-free guide to understanding your body and how you can live better for longer.
Yo, welcome back, episode 12. We decided this week that every week we have questions from people. I'm like, right, we'll do it at the end. And then I'm like looking at the clock being like, oh shit, right, we're coming up to 60 minutes. Like we can't start a new question now because that's at least another 20-minute conversation that we'll just go off on one. So this week we're going to do a full Q&A episode. I have a list of questions, Dave has a list of questions, and we're just going to get straight into it, I think. So I'm Ben Canning.
I'm Dave Kennedy.
And this is Hacking Your Health. What's been going on this week?
Not much, man. I am milking a little bit of an injury at the moment. And it wasn't even the lifting. You know, we talked a little about this last podcast, but it wasn't even the lifting. You know, I was just basically picking up a 20, 30 pound pitching machine and pulled my back, and it's just been really nagging on me. So that's the only thing that's really been bothering me this week.
I think you need a better story than that. It needs to be a bit more of an extreme story.
Right.
Yeah,
you know, like, hey, I was in the wilderness, fighting a bear.
I had to save a family of bears. Well, I mean, a positive on that.
Nothing like that at all, yeah.
A positive on that for me, obviously I hurt my back a couple of weeks ago, actually training related, and it was frustrating me a bit because I couldn't train at full capacity. But yesterday I went through a session with my buddy Helmy, and we were able to do an entire session that it didn't give my back any issues. And it was just having a bit of sort of forward thinking and knowledge of where the pain's coming from and what causes it to be sore. So I find it worse whenever I'm like overextending like this. And I find it worse if I'm like sat right down in the bottom of a squat. So I just try to avoid any movements like that. I used a lot of machines so that I was fully locked into it. And I put in a really, really good session still while having a semi-injury. So I think that's a good point to note for you as well, and anybody else who thinks that, you know, if they injure themselves that they just can't train. There are ways around pretty much everything. It's just sort of having a bit of an insight, sort of change of plan kind of thing. But yeah, that sort of, I felt really good after it. My legs are fucked today, for want of a better word.
Well, I definitely didn't change my plan. I just powered through it with the injury, which probably isn't the best thing to do. You know, my rationality was like, well, yes, it's hurt, but like if I just kind of like do my normal lifts, I mean, I'm sure it'll like heal eventually, which probably is the most horrible thing you should probably do. So don't listen to my advice. But
no.
So, but today's actually a rest day, and I took off Orange Theory today just to give myself a little bit of a breather to recover a little bit. So it hurts me, you know, that I'm not lifting today or I'm running today, but today's actually a suggested in air quotes rest day in the NIPR program, so it'll be all right.
And we're coming up to the end of that.
Yeah, this is this is week 9, I think, and then week 10 is really just kind of like a deload week and kind of testing your 1-rep maxes and stuff. So that's pretty cool. I'll tell you, I was doing bench yesterday, and I switched to the Kabuki cambered bar, which is the curved bar that kind of goes like this, and it you're kind of like a neutral grip going into it, and it focuses more on your chest and triceps versus your shoulders, so it locks your shoulders into place to where you can't really overpower the entire movement on your shoulders, and more isolation on your chest, which is great. The issue with that though is, you know, if you're doing standard barbell, you can lift much heavier, you know, from a barbell bench press than you could with the Kabuki cambered bar. But what was really interesting is I slapped on those 5 sets of 2 reps. So 5 sets, 2 reps. And, you know, the suggested weight was 205. And, you know, of course, that's the suggested weight. So I started getting up there and I was at like 245. And I'm like, man, this is easy. Then I put on, you know, 265 and I'm like, I can still do this too. So then I did 285 and I'm like, okay, you know, and I stopped at 285. but I really do think I could have gotten to 305, which is really interesting because 305 was my max bench press on the barbell. And when I went to the Kabuki Camber bar, it was 215, or sorry, it was 205 was my 1 rep max. So, I went down 100 pounds basically, and I shot up 100 pounds. So something's definitely working, and my strength is definitely increasing pretty much in every capacity. I mean, deadlift, overhead press now, I would say is probably at 215, 225. So definitely making some pretty substantial progress on all those different areas, which is great.
Yeah, some of the ways the way those bars are set up, I went through Chris's check-in on Monday there, and the bar, I think it's the same one that you're talking about. That he has the way that it's set up and the way that it forces your arms, shoulders, and chest to be. It's a much more, I guess, beneficial way to actually press to get the movement from your shoulder, or not from your shoulder, from your chest. And it's like, it just puts you in a much better position. And yeah, okay, you maybe need to drop the weight at the start, but I would rather drop the weight and get the connection through the muscle that you're actually trying to work, rather than, struggling through and trying to get, just get your bench press up. I don't like flat bench in any way, shape, or form. I just don't think it's very nice for anybody, but the way those bars are set and the way that your palms face in and shoulders and stuff like that, it's nice.
Yeah, I really enjoy it, and I won't go back to a normal barbell bench press, to be perfectly honest. But what you mentioned, kind of working around your injuries. One of the biggest things that I had problems with was injuring my shoulders and my lower back was my 2 main problematic areas. So, the Kabuki Camber bar really saw that. I haven't had any shoulder pain whatsoever since I moved to that. And then, for my squats, I can still, I usually use, pull, block pull deadlifts, which, kind of keep me in a neutral spine position to reduce the burden off my back. But also I got the Rogue Rhino, which is a squat machine that allows me to really focus and isolate the quads just as you would from a squat. And that also has eliminated a lot of the pressure on my back. So, trying to find the ways around your body and where your body's, most sensitive on. Obviously, you want to continue to build your muscles around those problematic areas to increase strength. But at the end of the day, it was, I've luckily been able to not have any injury until I picked up a 20, 30-pound baseball pitching machine.
So you fought the bear in the wilderness?
So I fought the bear in the wilderness.
Right. I want to get straight. Anything else to add? Or we get straight into the questions.
No, I thought we got some good responses from the podcast on TRT from this last week, and that was really good. Yeah. A lot of good discussions there from folks that kind of went through their plan and their regimen, how TRT's kind of helped them, or folks that were just looking at it. So that's also great to see. Again, all about optimizing your body and what you can do to live on this life longer, right? Live this life a little longer.
I think there's a lot of good conversation going on in the Discord about it as well. And I think, even us talking about it has sort of prompted other people to share their experience. And, although, as we sort of said, it's not something that's massively spoken about, I think that, whenever one person in the group starts to speak about it, then people are willing to share their experience. And it's much better, even for somebody who's just thinking about it, that they can, come to you or ask somebody else in the group, like what their actual experience was, so they can get it firsthand, rather than just going by, either what we said or what they're saying on the internet, and sort of give the pros and cons side of it as well. So it's been good to see sort of people come together to be able to help other people within the group.
Yep. It's awesome. Any type of support community that you have, that's positive, that's, has your best interest at heart, is always going to be something that hopefully makes you better and successful in those different areas. So it's good to see the community just grow, and just all the awesome people that are in it. Just awesome. So
yeah, actually we skipped over a point. We did a live event on Saturday. That was our first sort of like taking the podcast on a virtual tour, I guess. Yeah. That was a lot of fun. I had a good time with that as well. And that was for VetSetCon, and it was great, just kind of have dialogue and talk about, folks that struggle with their own health. And I think, that really resonated with me, because it's the struggle that I had when I got out of the military, right? The military puts you into a position where, you're successful because they put you in a structured program, right? You literally get fed your food. You literally get put in a PT schedule. You're running all the time and, always active. And then you get out and you don't have that structure anymore. And, most of us, that either struggled with it previously or started to, during or after, we just shoot up in weight. And I was obviously my heaviest that I've ever been in my entire life coming out of the military. And, it was good to see the reaction that we had from the folks there, because,
a lot of them had the same exact struggles that I had, right? And, getting them into a framework that allows them to really try to, help them, get control of their food, get control of their calories, get control of where they want to go. Those are all really big things. So, yeah, it was a great time. I don't know, you did awesome, obviously. So what did you think?
Yeah, no, I had fun doing it. I didn't really obviously know what to expect, but then whenever I got there, it was like, well, we do this on a weekly basis, and it's exactly the same setup. There's just actually people watching us live. But yeah, it was good to actually see some of the feedback from some of the people who are there, who have been listening to the podcast, who are in the Discord server, who have been implementing the things that we've said and have had success on their own journey without, having to overly interact with us, or, not in a specific coaching program or whatever. They're literally just taking the things that we're saying and going and doing them, and they're having success in it. And it's good to sort of get that positive feedback from people. It shows that, we're not just talking to ourselves, and people are actually going and doing this stuff as well.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And I'll tell you one thing I'm excited about is the email that I shot you yesterday about the new training program. So
yeah,
I'm excited to do my own first training program, obviously heavily supervised and modified, specifically for you. I'm even going to put Ben's patented tricep extensions in there. We come up with these different movements. Yeah, no one probably understands this inside joke, but Ben taught me that when he does the tricep extensions, he doesn't use just one rope; he uses two ropes to give you a much longer pull, so you can really focus on the isolation there. But the thing with Ben is all about being slow with your movement. So if you think you're going slow enough, you're not. You need to slow it down by tenfold of the movement that you're doing. So his tricep extensions, he'll be.
You think there's something wrong with the video if you're watching it?
Yeah,
video?
Yeah. I'm like, wait, did it freeze and it not download? Am I back on a modem again? But no, but obviously time under tension is so important when it comes to this, and making sure you have good form and everything else that comes along with it, and obviously muscle failure. So, I'm looking at what Ben and I have kind of been talking about is, I'm 39 years old, and I'm obviously I just like to throw that back out there that I did a 505-pound deadlift. But that's obviously some amazing weight, but that's not really sustainable long term, especially if I want to be less prone to injury. So, my focus is going to be, predominantly more reps and lesser weights, and going more towards muscle failure that way and progressive overload that way versus, the kind of the power building method of things. So I'm going to kind of chill out on this super heavy lifting and start to go more towards, bodybuilding and things of that effect. And what's actually interesting about that is that it's two very different types of approaches, but they also have a lot of the same results. So I was actually watching, there's a guy named Jeff Nippard that went through the whole kind of science research on all of this and everything. And there was a study that came out where most of the people that focused more on higher reps, less weight, and people that focused on more weight, less reps. So in the 6 to 10 range of reps for higher reps, less weights, and then the 3 rep range for super heavy weights, experienced the same level of hypertrophy or muscle growth in both classes than one or the other. The interesting part about that, though, was the people that did 3 sets, they had a much larger dropout rate, i.e. got injured more, or weren't able to be compatible with it. So there's if you still go heavy, you still can grow your muscles, obviously, but the volume that you have to push through from a progressive overload perspective starts to be a major issue when you start getting into that high, lower rep, higher weight range as well. So I'm just going to more of the, grow my muscles, look strong. I'll still be strong, don't worry. But maybe I'll never get to a 605-pound deadlift, and I'm okay with that. So
I think exactly what you said there. It's looking at the total overall volume. So it's doing the power building program for me gave me a good insight to powerlifting. It's not a way that I have ever trained or wanted to train. I understand it. I'm never want to be a powerlifter, so I'm not actually going to train like that way long term. But it's exactly what you said. It's the total overall volume. So you said yesterday you did 5 sets of 2 reps on chest. So you did 10 total reps. Obviously, it was super heavy. Yeah. I would say that if I had programmed you to do, 3 sets of 8 to 12, okay, yeah, you're going to have to do a lighter weight. But if you look at the total volume lifted, then it's going to be the same, if not more, across the 3 sets. And I think that that's an important point to note. And as I said to you in email this morning, there's a lot of different types of sets that we can do that will sort of take you to a new place of muscle fatigue. So there's like rest pause sets, muscle rounds, there's sets that I've been doing with Helmy that's like drop the weight by 30%, focus on the negative. So all those things, while it may not be, either one or the other, it's ways that we can continue to increase the volume without putting the overall stress of like a super heavy weight on the body. And I think it's just about being smart with it and programming that way versus just wanting to be able to lift a heavy weight to lift a heavy weight.
And don't get me wrong, lifting heavy things and throwing them down is awesome. It's an amazing accomplishment when you, again, lift a 505-pound deadlift, just to throw that out there. But, it's one of those things where I recognize that, listen, as I get older, that's not going to be doable. But what is doable is me continuing to grow my muscle mass and to look awesome and ripped with my t-shirt off and still be able to, beat anybody in arm wrestle. So that's the most important thing there. So.
But I think that's a good point to note as well. You need to know why you're doing it and what you're doing it for. If you're training because you want to become a powerlifter, then you should train like a powerlifter. If that's not what you want to do, then don't train that way. And it's just about understanding what you actually want to do and the implications that either training method or any training method is going to have in terms of the pros and the cons of it, because each will carry both.
And you can also obviously balance it too. So, that's what the kind of program we're doing, which is called power building, which is a combination of, instead of doing, 6 low rep sets, you only do 1 heavy compound movement, that is, high sets, but low reps, high heavy weights. And then the rest of it are supplemented with that 6 to 12 or 6 to 15 magic number of higher reps for muscle hypertrophy. So, I still grew muscle and I still, had muscle fatigue and things to that effect. But, in this case, when we start looking at the new program that I'm going on, it's just going to be purely focusing more on volume than it is going to be, slapping around as much weight as possible. So I think that's going to be a fun one. And actually that's been all of our training programs up until this has been just that, right? All the training programs that you put together have really been focused on, muscle growth and muscle hypertrophy and muscle fatigue. And all those things. It's always been in the, 8 to 15 range. And, sometimes, like the lat raises and things like that are more in the, 20 to 30 range, but, that's obviously good as well. So, those are all good things I'm looking forward to kind of building out a little program with my equipment. So
I think that leads us in. There's a question that came from James in the client group. Actually just picked it up just before I clicked in here. And he said about the relationship between building strength and building muscle mass. So from a building your V10 calorie engine perspective, would you recommend someone focus more on bodybuilding and muscle mass before strength specifically? Or should someone focus on foundational strength via something like powerlifting and then later do physique work to build mass? So I think we pretty much covered that in that question. If you want to input, I have an input as well.
Well, I think you hit on it, which is, what is your objectives, right? Is your objectives to, look big and be shredded and, be awesome with your t-shirt on, or is your objectives to be strong, and maybe not look as big? And I'm not saying you don't look as big in those types of situations, just usually again, very different objectives. So, for me, I'd like to look big and look shredded and all that good stuff and be kind of strong. I mean, still be strong, but not like, not like Thor. I don't plan on doing 1,000-pound, deadlift or whatever the hell he was doing. But, it's one of those things where you're like, I think that, your strength definitely comes like when you're increasing muscle mass and you're increasing your progressive overload on your muscles, you're going to be stronger, right? Your muscles are going to be stronger in every way. And so you are going to hit, the strength muscles and the muscles that grow as well. So it's one of those things where, I would personally, if you're, it's again, based on goal, but I would personally be going more towards the, higher rep ranges and bodybuilding components than I would anything else. Cause you're going to see the more drastic results with that versus something like powerlifting.
Yeah, agree. And, for me, it's a case of looking at the person and what their start point is. If it's somebody who is 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 pounds overweight, I'm not going to get them to a place where they're going in and doing, powerlifting and they're doing, 3 sets of 2 reps, because it's not going to give them what they need. And I think as well, a good point to note for that as well is, you have to have, in my opinion, a certain level of strength to go into powerlifting. Do you know what I mean? I can't just walk off the street first day and just start powerlifting as if I'm going to be able to lift any sort of weight. So for me, what I like to focus on at the start is, as I've said before, you know, a bit of a recomposition phase, which tends to be higher rep ranges, like probably, but usually higher than that sort of 8 to 12 and beyond. What that'll do is it'll allow us to burn calories while we're training, also be able to increase strength, and then it gives us somewhere to go that we're doing that more bodybuilding style of, you know, 8 to 12, 10 to 15, whatever it is. The only time I would really start to put in like powerlifting style stuff is if you want to focus on getting strong in a certain type of movement, and I would do maybe, you know, 2 sets of 3 to 6 or 1 set of 3 to 6 and then a back off set of like 8 to 12 or something like that. But I would never put someone straight into like a powerlifting style program. And I actually was on a call recently with a guy, and he said that he just Googled and he was doing a 5x5 program. And I've heard a couple of people talk about doing this at the very start. And while I understand the concept of it, and while yes, okay, it's great to be going and doing something, from a fat loss perspective, it's probably not going to give you what you need. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, you go in and you do 5 sets of 5 reps at whatever it is, with big rest periods in between. For me, at the start, if it's fat loss, what you want to be focusing on is keeping your heart rate up, building strength, getting the reps in, and just sort of like building a foundation from there. So, answer to James's question, I would say go more higher reps to start with, and you can still build your strength. And if you really want to look at the sort of micro details of it, you can start looking at the total overall volume, which I think we will look at in your next program. We'll monitor the total overall volume as we go.
Yeah, I think my goal is going to be to definitely focus on increasing weights, you know, each week, you know, for that progressive overload aspect of things, which I think is going to be good. You know, so I'm trying to get my Excel Ninja foo on to see if I can figure out how to do that, where it automatically do like just say like a 5% increment increase of volume per week based off of what I previously did. So like you would enter in the you know, the weight that you did, and then, you know, it would then match that based on sets and then times that by 5% into that next week. So, I'm excited about it. And I think you hit on the head too. Like I know when I was doing the power building program with Nippard, I definitely noticed that my workout routines were less sweaty. You know, they were less intense, you know, because there's more pauses in between them because you're doing the heavier sets, right? And, you know, I'd kind of leave there like, well, and then I'd usually basically add like, you know, 3 or 4 different movements at the very end that were, you know, like burning out myself. So, you know, it's, I prefer doing more of the higher rep volume because I feel like, you know, I'm getting a much better workout for my body.
Yeah. This question, I guess it follows on to that from Fuzzy Logic. What are some progressive overload strategies if you don't have access to a commercial gym or a massive home gym? I have a couple of these because I had to do this at the start of the first lockdown, and we had to sort of get creative with things. So I've given an endless amount of these. The first one, and the one that probably saved the majority of people, is having a decent set of resistance bands. If, for example, say you have a barbell and some plates, but you've maxed out the plates in any movement you're doing. If you have some way of adding a resistance band to that, number one, it totally changes the profile of the movement. Number two, it will seriously fuck you up in terms of the movement and the difference by just adding a resistance band. And not just with a barbell. If you're doing something like a goblet squat with a kettlebell, if you have a resistance band wrapped in the kettlebell and under your 2 feet, the way that resistance band will make the exercise harder as you come up will completely change the movement. So a decent set of resistance bands, understanding the resistance profile of each movement and how you can make it more difficult with the bands. The other thing would be tempo, that I'm always a big fan of. You could play about with the tempo. So again, anybody that didn't have a lot of weight at home at the first lockdown, I would have really got them to focus on their tempo. So as we said before, you know, if you're doing a goblet squat again and you're doing 1 second down, 1 second up, if you change that tempo to 3 seconds on the way down, a 2 second pause at the bottom, 2 seconds on the way up, and 1 second pause at the top, it's 3 or 4 times the amount of work with the same amount of weight, and it is another variable. So we've got resistance band, we've got the tempo. Another one would be the rest period, so you can make things more difficult by being slightly tighter on your rest period. Look at things like supersets, that you can again play about with sort of what your recovery is. Sets, reps. So variables will be sets, reps, rest period, tempo, and resistance bands.
There's definitely some great home gym stuff that you can use that can simulate resistance band training and things to that effect. There's one that's called the X3 bar that I really like. I actually use that for when I travel. It's a metal platform, and it has a bar that is used for the bands, and you use bands for resistance training for that. And you can do full body workouts. You can do squats, you can do deadlifts, you can do bicep curls, you can do tricep extensions, overhead presses with it. It's basically a flexible platform that's relatively inexpensive in comparison to a full home gym. It doesn't take up a lot of space. You can do it literally anywhere in your house. And it has varying levels of different resistance bands that you can build up for hypertrophy. And I'll tell you, when I do workouts with that thing, it shreds my body. Like the resistance bands, and it's just continual tension the entire time, right? Because you're going up and it's continual tension as you go down. It's just, they do a really good job at doing those. So I really like those. I also like the name's escaping me right now. I use them downstairs. TRX Bands. Mm-hmm. The TRX Bands are these little. It's like a little mount that you drill into your wall. Find a post, and you definitely want to make sure you find a post. You don't want to be doing it without a post. And they have these two ropes that come off of it, and there are full body workouts for those, basically using your body weight. So you can do full body workouts directly with TRS. You can do chest presses. You can do bicep curls. You can do tricep extensions. Shoulder movements. Like it'll hit everything, even legs. Everything else for your body just by using your own weight as a component of that. So those are good ones. Even getting just some kettlebells can help out a lot with that. If you don't have a lot of space, just a couple kettlebells that are certain weights can help out a lot. So there are definitely things that you can purchase that are more compact. There's also they make these foldable racks that you can put into like your garage if you have the space. And so like they basically just completely fold flat, and then when you're ready to go, it pops out, and you have a full rack that you can do literally everything in, and everything's like self-compact. So there's a lot of really portable things that you can kind of put together as you go along. But the X3 bar for me is something that I always travel with now. So if I'm flying to a specific location, I know I'm not gonna be able to hit a gym. I'll bring the X3 bar with me, and it fits right into my carry-on bag that I'm bringing in. Those are some of the key ones that I'll use.
Yeah, I think, with the resistance bands, I still use resistance bands in my normal training, and you've banded the hack squat and stuff like that. So, you can do a lot with resistance bands. And another one that came to me there was, if you're sort of maxing out the weight you're doing, look at doing the movement unilaterally. So if you're doing, for example, RDLs or, even a chest press, if you can find a way that you can do that one arm and then the other. Obviously, if you're not using both arms, then you can obviously drop the weight, so you have more to go with the weight on the way up. So that'd be sort of things that I would look at. Another question here. This one actually was for last week that we missed from Dirty Nerdy. 2 to 3 meals come from meal prep service, so tracking is super easy. Other meals at home are also fairly easy since I'm in control. The place where you get analysis paralysis is sorts of restaurants and events. How much effort do you think we should put into accuracy of the numbers of those meals? Find myself ordering less or better than I would in the past, but still get hung up on trying to be perfect on the numbers when it's not in control of the food.
I think, at least for me, that sounds perfect. Trying to be as precise with the food as possible, knowing that you might not be perfect with that I think is perfectly fine. I mean, if you're going to be in a 200 or 300 calorie miss, either minus or plus, that isn't going to severely impact you in one day at all, right? And here's the thing: like most of the restaurants, at least here in the United States, when you go to their website, they'll have the nutritional information on there, or it'll actually be on the menu itself. So if you can find the nutritional aspects, that's typically what I do. The first thing I do is I usually go to the website, see what I'm going to order, and see if it has the calorie nutritional count next to it, just to kind of understand where I'm at. Or I'll in my Fitness Pal, if you search for a specific restaurant, sometimes it'll have those in there, but you don't know how accurate those are going to be. But I know most of the places that I go to, I stay pretty consistent. So if I'm going to Chipotle, for example, I've already built out all of that, and I already have it pre-saved, and I just get the same thing every time. So I know where my calories are at there, right? But if I'm going out to, like, let's just say a restaurant and I get a filet, well, yeah, I know it's an 8-ounce filet. So what's that typically going to be from a, micronutrient perspective? I don't necessarily need to go directly to that restaurant's 8-ounce filet, I can kind of ballpark that 8-ounce filet with asparagus, right? And butter, so I can kind of add those types of things into there to kind of get, somewhat of a decent or accurate count. That's kind of how I handle my situation.
Yeah, and I think there's two sides of the coin here. It's number one, if you are eating out in a restaurant once a week, say for example you eat 5 meals a day, you've 35 meals across the week. If you're fully in control of 34 out of those 35, and one is slightly off, it's not going to be the end of the world. Now, from my experience of dealing with you guys and accuracy in numbers and data, I understand that you want to have super specifics. So the way that I would look at it is, I would just literally try and break down the meal as much as possible. So try and understand what's in each part of the meal and enter those individually if I can. I would also, always put like 100 or 150 calories buffer on top, because, you never know what it's actually cooked in and things like that. And the other thing that I'd always recommend is banking calories up until you go to whatever the meal is, just so that you're fully covered if you want to really, really cover your back on that. What I do with you guys and with clients, if it is a struggle to understand, I'll get you to track it. Send me a screenshot of my MyFitnessPal that you've tracked and send me a photo of the food. What that does is, it, number one, gives me a bit of an understanding as to what way you think about food, but it means that you're actually doing it rather than you just send me a photo of the food and me going, right, it's going to be X amount of calories with X, Y, and Z. So you'll actually do it, and then you'll learn as you go. It's never going to be something that you're fully 100% on. And I even think, and I may be wrong on this because it was a couple of years ago, but for example, if you and I started a food company and we wanted it to be on MyFitnessPal, they give like a 20% leeway either side of calories anyway. So, it's not always 100% accurate anyway, but it's just about being as consistent and controlling as many variables as possible. But like I said, if it's one meal out of the week, it's not gonna make that much of a difference.
Yeah, and I do try to stick to as much as possible. If I'm going to DoorDash something, that I know the calorie contents for those as I order it, if it's already posted, those types of things. Same thing for, meal prep services. I have meal prep service as well, that I use, and it's easy to track the macros that way. But, just trying to stay as accurate as you possibly can with it is definitely the best solution there.
Yep. Another one from James, actually, while we're talking about calories, he said, my wife wants to lose weight but sees calorie counting as a punishment or a burden, not as a positive tool for taking back control of her body. How do you help people who don't view it this lifestyle possibly shift their thinking? I want you to deal with this one because I don't have this issue. So over to you.
Yeah, Erin has the same issue too, right? Where counting calories is something that she's not willing to do, at least for her. One thing I've noticed is that as I've started to count my calories and as I've started to eat healthier, that has also has made it to my family, my kids, and my wife as well. So the meals we cook, the types of food we eat are definitely a much better thing, and she's definitely more conscious on the things that she's eating as well. So even though she may not be counting calories, it has gradually started to change how we eat from a nutritional aspect, which she's also noticed some good and substantial progress with that. Now, one thing that she has started to do, which is essentially counting calories but not counting calories, is she moved to Weight Watchers, which if you haven't used Weight Watchers in a long time, they have essentially like a point system, and so everything you eat has specific points, which is obviously calories. And so, you can basically say, well, I'm allowed to eat 15 points today, which equates to 2,000 calories or something. I don't know the numbers, but I'm just making that up. And so it's a little bit of an easier system. So like they know how many points they can have based off of eating it. So it's a overly simplified way of counting calories, which is smart, like for folks that don't want to research what they're eating, you can basically go into there, and she's had a lot of success with that and enjoys that quite a bit. So, there are things that you can do to kind of do that, but I think just, through attrition and eating healthier and, leveraging meal prep services, like Erin now gets the meal prep services delivered to her as well. We've done a much better job at eating right, throughout the household, than before. So it just takes time. At first there was no change. And then eventually, it started to kind of change a little bit more.
Because you were walking about with a six pack and your shirt off all the time, and she was like, right, maybe this is actually working. It's worthwhile looking into. I think
it was like a five and a half pack, but yeah.
The way that I would look at it is, I would take control of the food in the house, and maybe it's not specifically that the other person's counting the calories. It's in a way you're in more control of the food. Do you know what I mean? So if you do all the cooking in the household, you're more in control of like the portion size and things like that. Or what you could do is, depend on sort of where they're at, make it overly simplified. So just start to cut out certain things. So whether it's processed food or whether it's eating out in a restaurant or takeaway food or whatever it is, start to cut out certain things and give better qualities of food, and then make sure that you're focusing on the main parts of the meal. And like you said, there will always be resistance until it gets to the point where like, okay, right, I can see this actually working. And I remember this as well from, whenever I used to work in the restaurant and I was going to my Tupperware and everybody thought you were fucking crazy. And then, 6 months later, whenever I'm running about with a 6-pack, people are like, so what is it that you have in that Tupperware? Like, how do I know more about that? I've been doing this for fucking 6 months now. But yeah, I think it's just a time thing.
Yeah, I agree. I am the primary cooker at my house as well. So, I'll cook, steaks and chicken and things like that. And I primarily focus on whole foods, right? And so that is a big difference. My kids love steaks, my kids love briskets, everything else that goes along with it. So, I'll cook some meats, cook some foods, and, throw some sides in there. I typically only cook, some veggies, and I might throw some, some starches in there, like, some sweet potatoes or things like that. And everybody enjoys it. So it's been great. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just doing it for the whole family instead.
Yep.
While we're on the topic, now, this is maybe a bit of a curveball question. If you had to, would you rather give up meat or chicken from a ginger and his life?
You're talking about like beef and chicken?
Yeah, I assume so, yeah.
Beef or chicken? Well, you said meat and chicken, so I was just like...
Well, that's what the question says. I'm assuming
okay.
Beef.
Okay, so if it was beef or chicken, gosh, I'd probably say from a taste perspective, I would prefer beef, but from a like white meats and not clogging your arteries and stuff like that, I'd probably say chicken. So I'd probably stick with chicken and get rid of beef if I had to, which would sadden me quite a bit. But good news is I'm not doing that. So
Yeah, I mean, I would 100% give up chicken because, truth be told, I'm not even really a big fan of chicken. I've actually, I don't know if you've seen, but the Helmy's started doing my food, and I get to have a steak every morning for my breakfast. So I have steak and 3 eggs, and honestly, like the first time I was like, I don't know, see, having that steak first thing in the morning, like all day long, I would give up chicken without even a shadow of a doubt. I knew straight off the bat.
Yeah, steaks are pretty incredible. They're probably one of the best things that have ever been created. So, or eaten, I guess. But for you vegetarians out there, we apologize for this discussion right now. But it's I mean, the only reason I would say the chicken aspect is it's so easy to prepare and it's so easy to get ready and to kind of like store. Like, I don't like eating a steak that's over a day old. Chicken I can do. It might be a little bit dry, but I can still do chicken. So I don't know. I think if I had to choose between the two, I would pick chicken over beef or meat.
Thankfully, we don't have to choose though. Thankfully, because
yeah. So we don't have to do this. So
no.
This is all hypothetical. So I'm gonna go eat a steak here at lunch. So
actually, there's one thing I did change in my plan. So I sent it through to you, obviously, and there's one meal that was tuna and rice, and I've never been able to like tuna, like a tin of tuna. I would literally rather eat this desk than eat a tin of tuna. Like, I just can't. It's probably one of the only things that I wouldn't eat. And I was like, right. I also have
just you're saying tuna?
Tuna, yeah.
Tuna?
Yeah, fish.
Okay,
fish.
Yeah.
So I was like, right, I haven't obviously let him know. And I was like, I don't want to be that guy. He's like, don't want to eat this and whatever. I was like, right, how can I do this? And I was like, I eat sushi. So I just went and got some tuna, nigiri, and I just had it there, and it was absolutely incredible. So looking at my meal plan, and I think that this is funny because if I looked at the meal plan and somebody else looked at the meal plan, they see two totally different things. Do you know what I mean? Some people will just see a list of bland foods and they're like, I couldn't do that. But if you have a bit more understanding and care and enjoyment of food, you can sort of change things about. So I changed my shitty tuna and rice meal to sushi, and I just had loads of it there, and it was absolutely fantastic.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't mind tuna. I mean, I don't prefer tuna, but I do like things like salmon. The issue I ran into is I was a vegetarian / pescatarian for like 8 years, where I'd only eat fish.
Tell me that.
Hey, and And I was probably the most. That was actually some of my most. Yeah, that was probably the most overweight that I've ever been in my entire life. By the way, so like I'd only eat fish and obviously pastas and stuff like that, and vegetarian. You could obviously eat horrible on being a vegetarian as well. And so like I basically ate salmon for 8 years. And so like if I have a choice between like salmon, chicken, whatever, I'm usually not getting the salmon anymore. So, I rarely get salmon. Now, a good made salmon, I'll still eat, and it's still tasty. But, if I have a choice between a steak and a salmon, I'm definitely going steak. So,
why were you pescatarian and vegetarian?
So, like, it was this one, like, I was, when I was going back to college, I was, this is when I was the chief security officer for Diebold, and they wanted me to get a degree, to be a vice president in the company. And so I went back to school to get my degree. And one of the guys behind me worked at a meat processing plant. And he kind of told me the stories there. And like one day I'm like, F that. I am going cold turkey on meat. And I didn't eat meat again for 8 years after that. So, it was more of like I love animals. I really do. But they also taste really good as well. So it's like this internal struggle of conflict. So I did for about 8 years, try to limit but I definitely made up for all the meat that I didn't eat in 8 years. I have absolutely, since then I've absolutely made up for that. So
what was your first non-fish meal? Like what was your first meal when you started to eat meat again?
It's funny you mentioned that. My buddy owns a Chick-fil-A. And I went into Chick-fil-A and got a Chick-fil-A. It was my first meat that I had actually eaten to it. And I remember it clear as day. It was the best Chick-fil-A I've ever had in my entire life. It was the best chicken I've ever had in my entire life. And then I had a steak afterwards, which was like, so it was weird. Like I kind of like built myself up to it, if that makes sense. Cause like, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to do a little bit of chicken. And I tried that for a little while. And then I was like, all right, I'll try some like something else. And I'm like, all right, I'll try a steak. And I tried a steak and it was like the most amazing steak I've ever had in my life. It was just like, it's like, okay, I don't know what I was doing for 8 years.
8 years is a long fucking time.
It is a long time. And I'm talking like, I mean, no cheating, like I didn't like happen to eat a steak halfway through. I mean, it was like straight up 8 years of, being a vegetarian. So, and I rarely, when I talk about being a vegetarian, yes, I would eat fish, but I didn't eat fish a lot, so it was mostly, plants and shit. I don't know what I was eating.
I can't believe every time that we have a conversation, there's something else that you haven't, like, you can't just drop it in the middle of a podcast. Like, oh yeah, I was a vegetarian for 8 years. I think you know a guy.
Yeah. And this is like, this isn't too far away ago. I mean, this is probably like 6 years ago or 5 years ago or so. So yeah, I definitely eat much more meat now. So
yes, definitely. Okay, right. So where are we at? I'm totally lost in the question. Okay, so what physical indicators do you use that you need a day or more off from the gym versus need to push through this workout at all cost? You're maybe not a good person to be asking this, but go ahead.
I'm probably the wrong person to ask this. There's actually a great video on, if you just look up Jeff Nippert and overtraining, there's a great video where he breaks down the science. Yeah, it's actually very difficult to overtrain. People use the term overtraining all the time for hey, you need to be careful because muscles aren't going to be able to repair. You can put your body through a lot more than you think. Trust me. And so you definitely want rest days for your body to recover, and that's actually what we call muscle growth day because that's when you have the most amount of muscle growing. So for me, I do 6 days on, 1 day off is my routine, and I've had zero issues with that. Granted, I pulled my back on 20 pounds again, but that's a completely unique edge case there. But for me, I would say, if you're experiencing pain, where something's hurting you, you should definitely take it easy on those different specific muscle groups. Like, so for example, obviously my back is kind of killing me, but it's radiating into my left leg. So I should probably not be doing, like I did yesterday, heavy deadlift sets at, 405 pounds by 5, and 5 sets of that. So probably not, or 8 sets of that. Sorry. It's probably not the best idea. So, what I would recommend is work around that. So do more upper body, things that you're not going to have, specific pain from while the other body part recovers. But at the same time, your body can really endure quite a bit. especially if you've given it a day break, in between. So if you've, done upper body, for example, or you're doing push pull legs, from a split perspective on that, if you're giving yourself a day per muscle group, that's usually plenty of adequate time to start hitting that group again. So I'm a huge advocate of pushing through and, trying as hard as you possibly can to push your body to get that, progressive overload and growing those muscles. But at the end of the day, you definitely want to listen to your body. If you're, hurting, if there's issues, or, you're just so sluggish that you won't be able to lift, there's no point in doing it. So, you just got to listen to your body.
Yeah, I think you nailed it right at the end there. That was going to be my point. If you just feel exhausted, then that is probably where I would start to pull back, because, right now I'm standing here and I can feel every single fiber in my glutes, hamstrings, adductor and quads from training yesterday. Would I go and train legs today? Probably not. But I know that it's just, DOMs from yesterday's training. I'm not like overly exerted, and, I could go and train upper body or something like that today, no problem at all. But if you push yourself to a certain limit, and now you're at the place where like you are overly exhausted, or you're tired, or you just don't have any energy, and it's more of a sort of central nervous system issue that you need to take a day off, that's what I would look at. If it's just a case of your body's sore for training, like even my upper body, I can feel my chest from training on Monday and things like that. But I know if I went to the gym right now and spent 10 minutes, stretching, warming up and things like that, then I could get into a session, no problem. So there's a difference between your muscle being sore and your body being exhausted or overly exerted. But yeah, I'll link the overtraining video in the show notes. He was a bit, I watched it after the last time he mentioned it. He was a bit savage in it. Like, he was just basically like, shut up and get on with it. It's like, fair enough.
I like how you say I probably won't work legs today. So I probably won't work legs today. So it's still up in the air. It's still up in there.
Yeah. I'm just glad that I got that session in. Like, I'm really enjoying the feeling of being sore. And it's actually another point to note. I've been training with Helmy for 2 or 3 weeks now. And as I said before, the way he trains is absolutely fucking ridiculous. But it sort of drives me on to do a bit more, and giving 10%, 20%, 30% extra. Is actually even funny. Yesterday I was sat in the leg extension and I was like, wait, what did I used to do this before I was training with Helmy? And it was like, number 12 on the stack. And he was like, put it to 18. And I was like, geez, it's a bit of fucking increase. He's like, put it to 18. Actually, I will send you the video. I posted it on Instagram yesterday, but the color of my face went. But it's known that you can do it because there's somebody there pushing, and that comes down to, your body can do a lot more than it will allow it to, I guess. There was another point 100%. Here on. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying 100%. You're 100% right.
Yeah.
Having somebody there to motivate you is like 10 times better than yourself, right?
Yeah, agree. So another question here is, what do you do what do your warm-ups consist of, and do you ever do cooldowns? Again, I don't know if we're the sort of people to answer this question, but go ahead.
I do try to do a little bit of warm-ups, like, for like 5 minutes, I'll try to get my heart up a little bit. I usually just go to the basketball hoop and throw some basketballs and shoot some basketballs around, do layups, things like that. Just, something to get my heart rate just getting up a little bit. You can do steps, you can do a little bit of a jog. You don't want the cardio, though, to take, anything away from your weight training is the biggest aspect there, right? So I will do a little bit of warm-up, a little bit of stretching, most specifically around my IT bands, which are my most culprit areas of being tight, and then from there I do my lift. I do not do any cooldowns though. I will stretch a little bit afterwards, but I really don't focus on anything else other than just a couple stretches, and then I'm pretty much out.
Yeah, for me, my warm up consists of doing 2 or 3 reps at a lighter weight of whatever exercise I'm doing a couple of times until I build up to my working set, and that is generally what I do. So, for example, if I'm doing RDLs, I'll put a plate on either side. I'll do a set of 2 or 3 reps. I'll put another plate on either side. I'll do a set of 2 or 3 reps until I work up to what my working weight will be. Once I'm in a couple of sets into a couple of exercises into the session, I'll not really do much more than that. And in terms of cool down, no, it's not something I've ever done. Like, go outside and try and catch my breath and think about what I've just what I've just endured. I'm not sure if that's the best way to approach it, but I mean, so far so good for me.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I think stretching is important to loosen up the muscles and things like that a bit. And I probably should spend more time doing that, but I do spend time stretching throughout the day. I do try to keep my flexibility there. I do once a week go to there's a place where I do my cryogenic therapy stuff at, where I go to a cryo chamber and freeze my butt off for 3 minutes in a minus 170 degree place. They also have stretchers there, that professional stretchers that will stretch you, and move your body and things like that. So I do enjoy that. So I do try to keep up with mobility because, obviously stretching and mobility go hand in hand with your muscles. Also helps reduce, muscle injuries. So, I do try to get those in as much as I can. I have a little roller. It's like a 2-bar roller that you can just roll in your legs and your quads,
like a
and it kind of stretches those muscles out. Yeah,
like a rolling pin.
And it hurts. It hurts like hell, but it works really well. I'll usually do just a couple of minor stretches there where I hit my workout, depending on what body parts I'm moving. But that seems to be working for me. And then just quick 5-minute cardio workup just to get a little bit of heart rate going, a little bit of sweat, and then from there I'm hitting the ground, running from that side.
Yeah, I think it depends on what type of training you do. Do you know what I mean? It depends what you're going in to do. It also depends if you have any problem areas, like you said. Do you know what I mean? If you have something that, for example, you have a shoulder issue whenever you're training chest, then you should probably spend some time warming that up before you go in. It also depends on what time of the day it is. I find from experience with whenever I worked on the gym floor, people who were in first thing in the morning, who they'd literally just got up and went to the gym, and it was like winter, so it was freezing outside. Obviously, your body is cold, so you need to do something to actually physically warm that up. Generally, by the time I get to the gym, I always train in a jumper to start with, so I have my jumper on. The car's obviously warm. Whenever I go to the gym's warm, so my body is warm, so I never have that actually trying to actually get my body temperature up. But yeah, if you have, number one, depending on what your training is, if you have something that's super specific to you in terms of an injury or an issue, then yeah, warm up around it. And then obviously time of day as well would play a part.
Yep. I think that's really important. And when I'm doing cardio, by the way, I will do stretching before and after that as well too. So it's not just because I do cardio Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I will stretch a little bit beforehand, not as much, and then afterwards I'm definitely stretching.
Yeah, I don't do cardio, so can't relate. Sorry. So, question from the same guy, because I know what type of training he's doing at the minute. So, what pre-workout would you recommend for endurance training? Example: swimming, cycling, or running. Now, I have a recommendation on this just from a conversation I had in the supplement shop, and then I did a bit of research on it this morning. A thing that I would definitely recommend from an endurance perspective would be citrulline malate, and the reason that you would put that in is it delays muscle fatigue. So if you need something that you need to work a little bit longer, that's definitely something that I would have either pre-training or in your intra-workout shake. And then other things that I would look at would be L-glutamine as a recovery, because it's not just necessarily what you're having during your training, but also what you're doing to actually recover from it as well. And I don't have any knowledge in this at all, but again, I saw it through NI Supplements, the story they posted yesterday, and they talked about microdosing beta-alanine. So obviously, we all know at this stage that I don't like beta-alanine in terms of the hit that it gives you in certain pre-workouts. I know Dave absolutely loves it, and his ears perked up there whenever he heard it. But they talk about the same as creatine. If you microdose it throughout the day and have it every single day, and you're not getting that spike of it just before you do your training, you then saturate your system with it. It's a good sort of endurance thing as well. I haven't done any research on it, but I will later on. It's just something I picked up on their story earlier on.
Yes, citrulline malate is L-citrulline mixed with malic acid, I think, right? And that's it has a number of studies around muscle fatigue and lack thereof, or being able to enhance muscle fatigue over time. So that's always a good one. As Ben had mentioned, beta-alanine, niacin is another one, as well as caffeine can also be a performance enhancement as well. Some people like that, some people don't. Some people have reactions to it. So just depends on what you're looking for from that, from a pre-workout perspective. I typically prefer to do cardio or endurance training on a fasted stomach. There are some benefits to that, where if you look at what they consider level 3 training, which is high intensity type training, and then I'm not saying high intensity interval training, but more high intensity training where your heart rate is 70 to 80% of your max. There are studies out there that show there's 2 basic things that have to happen from a fat loss perspective. Your body has to basically say, okay, you can take this fat, and the fat also has to be transported for use for energy. If you're on a fasted stomach, it's anywhere between 30 to 40 minutes before that process kicks in, where your body will release the fat, and your fat actually, and the fat's actually transported for energy expenditure. Whereas if you're in a non-fasted state, it's about an hour and a half for that to actually occur. So if your interest is fat burning, working on a fasted stomach definitely has better impact on fat burning than not. From a performance training perspective, I also find that I'm much more locked in, I'm much more aware, and I can, and I definitely perform better on a fasted stomach than do not.
Yeah. Another one to note, just if it is, if it's a slightly different type of training, think of like endurance. And like I said, I know the sort of training that he's doing would be some sort of like simple carb that you can have in a drink. So like cystic dextrin or Vitargo or something like that. You can have either you have it in your pre-workout or you have it sort of throughout. So you have that sort of constant supply of energy as you're going through your training. I know you use that.
And ones that are doing like, ones that are doing like marathons and things like that. I mean, obviously you need to have, calories to be able to burn and stuff like that. For when I lift, I will typically take pre-workout beforehand, but I will have a big meal, usually an hour to an hour and a half before my actual weightlifting training, to ensure that I have appropriate nutrients and protein as I'm going through. And then I do intra workout shakes as well, that are more structured on the essential amino acid side of the house. And then I do a post-workout, meal, typically a protein shake, and then some sort of food afterwards. So it's kind of where I break everything down.
Cool. Another question specifically for you: what was the biggest impact that you didn't expect? I assume he means in either managing your training, nutrition, this journey, or working with me.
I would say probably the number one biggest thing for me is the amount of energy that I have, as well as my confidence. Those two things, skyrocketed to different levels with me. Now, I never thought I would be at a position where, I'm at today, what I'm able to lift, what I'm able to accomplish, how much I'm able to commit to my training programs. But for me, I think the confidence is one, and the energy levels is number two. I really feel like a completely different person now than what I was, a year and some change ago. It really has been very impactful for me, that I didn't really expect. I figured, hey, I would lose weight, and I'd be skinny again, and I'd be able to do that. But I never thought I'd be able to have the muscles that I have the energy that I have, perform in a way where I'm competing with, younger adults, and I'm, smoking everybody, and people are like, hey, you're a strong, competitor or worker, person that works out. So, like I never thought I'd be in that type of position in my life. So I'd say that's probably some of the byproducts that I have with that, but also just more enjoyment in life, I would say. Like I have more energy to do things with my kids, more energy to roughhouse and play around, or take them out and play basketball, or just be a dad. I mean, that's the things that I think had the biggest impact for me.
Yeah, I think the confidence thing is something I can relate to. Obviously, whenever I started training as well, it's not something that I was like, oh, I'm going to start training because I want to be more confident. But you just sort of generally have a different outlook, a different mindset, a different mood, a different, you're able to handle things that are thrown at you, even being able to do that talk and stuff on Saturday, although it's the same sort of setup as this, being able to do that and have a conversation, and actually be able to talk about stuff and just have confidence to do it, or confidence to have a conversation, whatever it is. It's not something I ever thought that I would be able to do. And that probably for me would have been the thing that I didn't expect off the back of it. And I guess becoming a coach, I never really thought that, I'm going to start this because of that, but here we are 5 years later.
Yeah,
years later.
Congratulations, man. It's awesome. And the amount of people you've helped is crazy as well. It's like this journey you go on to, right? I feel like I'm just starting my journey, right? I can't wait till I'm 5 years in and, deadlifting 7,000 pounds. Just kidding.
No, we need to step away from the deadlift, and we need to have a clear training structure plan to how many bags of groceries that we're going to be able to carry. What's the best technique? How do you load yourself up? I saw he put into the chat throughout the week, and he was standing there with all the grocery bags. I'm like, right, we need to get on this. This needs to be an actual event. Because that's really what it's all about.
Grocery bags. Well, what I find with grocery bags that has been very successful with me is that, I can load. So each finger can carry 5 to 6 bags per finger. So, you load them up in your fingers, and then you basically then wrap them up in your hands, and then you create a fist, right? So now you have them all in a fist, and you can use your entire weight to be able to carry them. So, I mean, I will carry 30 to 35 bags by myself, no issue.
I want to see it. I want to see it.
With, by the way, two 12 packs of pop in one shoulder, and then like a gallon of milk in the other, and I can literally get there the entire time. I mean, and my kids are like, "This is awesome, Dad. This is awesome." I'm like, "Yes, I know. It is awesome. It is definitely awesome."
We need to work out what the rules are. So is it amount of bags carried as well as total distance that they're carried for? Do you know what I mean? Like, we're going to need to have a setup station that the bags are loaded. We need to know whether are we allowed to use chalk or any sort of things like that, or is it just, are we lifting it raw? And then is it the distance that we need to cover? Are we going to be side by side? What way is it going to work?
There's got to be some sort of point system, because like what if I do 50 bags but I can only go 100 meters or something, but then somebody else goes 200 meters but they're only carrying 15 bags. So there needs to be a point system for I think total composition weight of the bags.
And is there going to be weight classes as well? Do you know what I mean? Is there going to be like we're in the 220 pounds plus? Is it
everybody here is hearing the early stages of the International Olympics, grocery bag carrying contest. So,
this will be a thing. And like I said, I genuinely, when I do make it over there, we will actually do it. Whether it's a bit of fun or whether it's a serious competition, no matter what, I'm going to win the trophy, no matter what it takes.
No, you're not. You're definitely not. But
and then you need to think about.
I will.
You need to think about paper bags versus plastic bags that have handles. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it's got to be plastic all the way. It's got to be plastic.
It's not good for the environment.
It's not. But it's better for carrying. So that's the thing. So can you reuse the bags, right? You can reuse the bags.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
Right. I think that's it from a question perspective. Anything you want to add?
No, I think it was a good episode. I love the Q&A.
Next week we're going to have our first guest.
Yeah, I'm excited about this one.
Next week.
Yeah. And we're doing a special episode with Chris as well, right?
Yep. So next week we're going to have Chris and a special episode. The following week we're going to have Matt, which I think is going to be a very funny. They're both actually going to be very funny episodes in their own right, but I'm looking forward to having another person on. And then I can start to look at getting some more people on, which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we've done some good job up in this point, and getting some guests in and different perspectives is always a great thing. And again, check us out at discord.gg/hacking your health. Check us out on Twitter, We Hack Health, or the We Hack Health hashtag, all over the place. And obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you're already checking out our podcast, so thank you. But another great episode in the bag.
Yeah, and please share it, because I don't want to go into too much detail, but to get us to a certain level of being able to bring other guests on, we need to have a certain amount of people actually listening, downloading, playing the show. So if you can share it with someone, it means that it will allow us to then give back more in a sense of getting other people on. So that would be great. Share it, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, share us around. Let us spread the word, and if you're enjoying the podcast, let other folks know about it.